What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of HWYSpec. My name is Trent. We are here. We are live. I've gotten all the technical issues hopefully figured out because you can see me. When I tried this earlier today, the camera wasn't working. The audio wasn't working. Everything was working with the streaming platform, which I am grateful for because I have partnered with StreamYard to bring you more live videos. So if you are interested in hosting your own live videos or getting your own podcast going and you need a great way to record it, StreamYard is the way to go. I've got a link in the bio to check out what StreamYard has to offer. Of course, all of my issues were not StreamYard related. They were my computer related. And unfortunately, that is how it goes sometimes. So here we are. We are live. We've got this going. We are going to do the Porsche 911 Bracket Challenge. There is a very big deal going on in the world of college hoops right now. We can't legally say the name, so we'll just say it rhymes with Smarch Sadness. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The brackets are huge. There's going to be bracket busters and all sorts of information flying at your face, whether you're a sports fan or not. So we're going to take advantage of that and come up with the Porsche version of that. What is the ultimate 911 version? So I was able to come up with about 35, 36 different versions of the 911 that I think are extraordinary. So these are not the standard Carrera 4, Carrera 4S, that kind of stuff. These are special versions of the 911. Which one is going to be the best one? I put them in a random generator. It chose the seed. I did not choose the seed on this. It picked that all on its own. So there may be some matchups that maybe aren't the most fair, but we are eventually going to get down to what is the number one pick? What is the number one Porsche 911 version out there? And there are a bunch. So like I said, originally came up with 35, 36. I did have to narrow that down to 32 just so we have an even bracket. And so these are, in my opinion, the top 32 Porsche 911 variants. And so we are going to jump into it and see what we can come up with in terms of what is the best version. So here we go. We've got the bracket pulled up here. This is our Porsche 911 bracket. And as you can tell, I'm going to try and zoom in here a little bit, get it a little bit easier to read for you. In our first lineup, we have the Porsche 964 Speedster and the 993 Carrera RS 3.8. And this one is a tough one because I do really like the 964 Speedster. It has the narrow body rather than the wide body, which some people don't like, but to me, it kind of harkens back more towards the original Porsche 356. So I think it has a really good look. But then also the 993 Carrera RS 3.8, that pays homage to the original Carrera RS, obviously, and that thing is very cool. So I think I'm going to have to go with the Carrera RS 3.8. It's going to go ahead and tell me that I haven't done any scores. This is a bracket where you can actually set it up so that you guys can follow along if you want to. I haven't set it up for that, so I'm going to go ahead and just run this one first, and we'll go from there and see if we can't get this set up for everybody else. So first one, that was a total bracket buster, 32, knocking out number one. Like I said, random seeding, so the bracket busting doesn't play as large of a part here. But next up in that lineup, we do have the 992 GT3, the winged version, and the 991 GT2 RS. Now, this is one of those things where the random seeding it doesn't quite work because these are both really great vehicles. And I hate that the GT3 is going to get knocked out in the first round, but it's the 991 GT2 RS. How could you not choose that one? That is just so much crazier of a car. It is the Widowmaker. I mean, they've used the Widowmaker line on multiple different vehicles, but this one truly is one that if you aren't able to tame it, it will try and wrap itself around a tree. And I can say that with some confidence because I've owned a first generation Viper, which is another one. It's a vehicle that's trying to kill you, basically. So here we go. We're on to the next. We are going to have the 997 GT3 RS 4.0 up against the Carrera 3.0 RS. And this is the original Carrera 3.0 RS, the one that followed up to the 2.7 RS. Very classic car. And you know what? It is a gorgeous car. One that I think, again, if the seating was different, it probably would have left the first round, but it's really hard to say no to the 997 GT3 RS 4.0. That is a classic vehicle that is only going up in price and desirability just because it's kind of the last of the analog GT3 RSs, and it's got that 4-liter naturally aspirated motor. So there it is. And next up on our list, we have the 997 GT3. This is your standard 997 GT3. And some of these I did not break out into, again, for simplification purposes, I didn't break them out in the .1, .2, you know, the little variants that they have. So I just lumped it all, 997 GT3, like 991 GT3. That's just what it is. The other option is the 911 Turbo S 918 edition. So this is 2012. You were offered if you had a Porsche 918, you were offered the option of a Turbo S that matched in terms of having the acid green accents. And it was a really cool car. Very rare, obviously, 918 versions of that. The GT3 is a very cool car, but going up against a GT3 RS 4.0 is just a no-brainer of which one you would choose that same generation. So for this purpose, I'm going with the 911 Turbo S 918 edition to take on the GT3 RS 4.0. Next up, we have the 992 Sport Classic and the 996 GT3. These are all a lot tougher than I expected them to be. Honestly, it really is. The 996 GT3 is a fantastic vehicle. It has been underappreciated for a long time. That is changing. It is getting more and more popularity and more desirable. But the 992 Sport Classic is basically a GT3 RS with manual, without the big wing and all the aero. I have to go with the 992 Sport Classic. It is a very desirable vehicle. I guess not necessarily exactly the 993 or 992 GT3 RS. That is the ST, which is next right here, going against the 991 GT3 RS. And for the same reasons as above, I have to go with the ST. That is one that is the GT3 RS, but a little bit more touring specification. That's going to be a tough lineup right there too. So going down the list, we've got to get through these rounds because there are going to be some tough competitions going through here. Next up is the 997 GT3 RS versus the 996 GT3 RS. And arguably the 997 is a better vehicle in every single way. And the 996 is very underappreciated. But there was something about that 997 when it came out, the graphics package they had that kind of ran up that fender. That was iconic and classic to me. And like I said, it's arguably the better vehicle. So we're going to go with the 997. Much as I do love the 996 GT3 RS in general, yeah, that's another tough one. All right, going up against the 997 GT3 RS in the next round, we have the 992 GT3 Touring model, or it says 991. That was a typo. Apparently I did that on a lot of them. Or sorry, 9. I don't even know what I'm saying. There we go. We have the Turbo S exclusive or the GT3 Touring. That's what it comes down to. The Turbo S exclusive offered 640 horsepower. It was the most powerful, quickest 911 turbo at the time. And it is an experience in terms of 0 to 60, but it's so comfortable every other time that you drive it. The GT3 Touring obviously gives you that manual transmission as a GT3, gives you some options to have a little bit more of a comfortable experience, but it still is a GT3. It's a very more raw driving experience than the Turbo S exclusive. And this is tough. This is honestly tough. I think I'm going to have to go with the 992 GT3. There we go. Next up, the 997 Sport Classic or the 991 GT3. And you know what? It's honestly pretty easy for me. The 997 Sport Classic is actually a really cool vehicle. It has a unique ducktail, just a nice wide body to it. Only made 250 of them, so much more rare than a standard 991 GT3. So the Sport Classic is the one to go with, at least in my opinion. Going to the next round, we're getting some of the older vehicles mixed in with some of the newer ones. You have a 993 GT2 versus the 930 Turbo Slant Nose. The 930 Turbo, that was a visceral experience, something that you don't get in a car anymore. But the 993 GT2 is otherworldly. That is something that I don't think you can say no to. I'm going to have to go with the 993 GT2. And if you have any comments along the way, make sure to drop them in here, because yes, I know some of these are not going to be everybody's favorite pick. This is obviously me doing the bracket challenge, and would love to hear what you think, what you would do differently. But feel free to follow along live here. Thank you, everybody who is joining in on the live. Even if you're watching later, thank you for watching. Totally appreciate it. Taking time out of your day to listen to me talk about cars. It's a dream come true for me. Next up, the original Carrera RS 2.7 versus the somewhat newer Targa 4S Heritage Design Edition. This one's really a no-brainer. I love the Targa 4S. It's a great vehicle, but nothing is quite like that Carrera RS 2.7. So we're going to go ahead and have it advance to the next round. I don't think anybody's going to argue with me on that one. But this next one, okay. So we have the 964 Turbo S. This is the 3.3 liter, not the 3.6, versus the 964 C4 Lightweight. So the C4 Lightweight, if you're not familiar, is basically the Carrera RS model of the 964, but they took it a step further, made it lighter, and I think it's definitely going to have to be that, because it is a more raw experience. Now, if we're talking the 3.6, it's coming next round here. I think the 964 C4 Lightweight is the one to go with, at least in this bracket here. Next up, though, is the 964 Turbo 3.6S Flat Nose, the one that is worth $1 million easily, because they made so few of them, against the 992 GT3 RS. This is not a fair one either. Two totally different vehicles. One is the peak of engineering. One is raw, just throwing power whatever they had at the time. Porsche was really trying to survive during the 964 era. Arguably, it's not a great vehicle. It only had 380 horsepower versus over 500 for the GT3 RS. But I'm going to have to kick the 992 out of this one and go with the 964 3.6 flat nose. That is quite a vehicle. Wow. I did not expect some of these vehicles to be kicked out of the first round. It is what it is. Oh, okay. See, this is what happens with the random seeding. I did not seed any of these. This is what it's set up for me. We've got the 911 GT1. If you're not familiar with that, familiarize yourself, because that is an incredible vehicle, something that they made roughly 20 units. They're supposed to make 25 total. to homologate it for GT1 racing in Le Mans. And then that's going up against the 997 GT2 RS, which, again, very difficult decision. But it's the 911 GT1. How can you say no to that? That is definitely moving on, and that is going to be a tough lineup too. Next up, we have the 911R versus the 930 Speedster. Now, the 930 Speedster is one that is just the classic Speedster to me. That's the one I grew up with, where it was like when you thought 911 Speedster, that's what you thought of. 911R is a very modern vehicle that Porsche put that manual transmission in it, and it was a different manual, single mass flywheel, different driving experience than you had with the original GT3. And obviously they only made 991 of them, I believe, something like that. You're going to correct me if I'm wrong, and feel free to do so. The 930 Speedster arguably is worth more in the long term because Porsche's come out with a lot of different versions of the 911 since then, like the 911 ST, which is a great vehicle. This is one I can't decide. Feel free to let me know. What do you think I should be choosing between the 911R and the 930 Speedster? Both are fantastic vehicles. I'm probably gonna piss off a few people here. Going with the 930 Speedster. That's my final answer. There we go. Next up, we have another Speedster, the 991 Speedster, which came out recently. Really cool vehicle. I love the Speedsters in general. I love that they are raw. They have no real top mechanism. It's just an open air experience. You want it, you don't. It's a sunny day, you take out the Speedster. But it is going up against the 993 Turbo S. Now, the 993 Turbo in general, that is one that I was just enamored with, because growing up, there was a neighbor that had a yellow 993 Turbo, not Turbo S, but a 993 Turbo that was just gorgeous. I loved watching this thing as it drove by, and because of that, I think I'm going to have to go with the 993, taking it over the 991 Speedster. Whew. There we go. Random seating has made this a very difficult experience for me. Yeah. So I appreciate everybody who's jumping on the live here. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not doing so already. I know I've got a few people jumping on live on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But we do have a few people on YouTube as well. So if you do have, if you're on one of those platforms and you're not following me on one of those platforms, make sure to jump over to the other one, follow along. On X, Twitter, I do a lot more random things, post a lot more random things there. YouTube obviously is a little bit more formatted, a little bit more structured. This is obviously a live stream, not very structured at all. I'm going to screw up a bunch of times. That's just how it goes. But I do want to thank StreamYard, because I have partnered with StreamYard on this stream just to go live more often, and they make it such an easy experience. You can tell I've been doing showing you my screen, showing you my face as well. I can do both. I can have other people jump on. I've used StreamYard before for podcasting, and it's been a great experience. So if you're thinking about podcasting, StreamYard is a great way to go. I do have a link in the bio in my YouTube description that will lead you to some more information about StreamYard. But with that, we're going to get back into our bracket. So here we go. Round two. This thing is about to get spicy. We've got the 993 Carrera RS 3.8 going up against the 991 GT2 RS. Whew, that's a tough one. The 993 is very analog. The GT2 RS wants to kill you. What do you go with? In this case, honestly, I think I'm going to go with the 991 GT2 RS. that hurts a little bit to do that, but it is a very cool car and one that it's going to be hard for Porsche to top some of these vehicles over time as things have to become more regulated, and things are going to maybe have to dial down a little bit in terms of raw power and add electrification and things like that. I think the GT2 RS is going to go down as one of those vehicles that you're never going to forget. So for that reason, GT2 RS is moving on. And this one, honestly, it's easy. The seating, just how it worked out, for me, it's a no-brainer. 997 GT3 RS 4.0. That is one that is a very analog experience, something you're not going to get ever again. So it is moving on. And then we have the 992 versions of the most analog version of a 992 that you can get. I'm not saying they're analog like the GT3 RS 4.0 is, but you've got the 992 Sport Classic and the ST. And the ST, I think, is obviously the closest thing you can get to the 911R from the 992 generation. For that, the ST moves on. There we go. Who will it be facing up against? The 997 GT3 RS or the 992 GT3 Touring? This one's going to be kind of difficult, but kind of not. The GT3 Touring obviously is going to be nothing compared to the ST, so we're going to go with the 997 GT3 RS. This is not one that I want to have go up against each other. And the 997 Classic, honestly, it has my heart. But the 993 GT2 has the hips, it has the wing, it has all the things that just make it a stand out over any other Porsche 911. The Sport Classic, any other day, I think I would probably take it. But going up against the 993 GT2, I think I have to choose that. And so it moves on. All right. On to our next bracket. We have the original Carrera RS 2.7 against the 964 C4 Lightweight, which is the Carrera RS version of that, made even lighter. What do you go with here? Arguably, the Carrera RS is going to be the more valuable one, but it's not about value necessarily in this instance. It's about what I would personally rather have, what I would personally rather drive. And I think in that case, I'm going with the 964 C4 Lightweight. Yes, I just kicked out the original Carrera RS, the thing that Porsche pays homage to all the time with these Carrera RS models. But it is what it is. Next up, this one's not fair. You've got the 964 rather turbo 3.6S flat nose. This thing is gorgeous. I love the front end of it. It makes 380 horsepower, which at the time was crazy, but it's going up against the 911 GT1. This thing is a race car on the road. And that's just what it is. That GT1 is just unlike anything else. So that's moving on in the bracket. And that leads us to our final one of round two here. The 930 Speedster against the 993 Turbo S. And like I mentioned earlier, the 930 Speedster, that's what a 911 Speedster is to me, because I saw that growing up. That was such a cool car. But the 993 Turbo S, it takes the last of the air cooled and dials it up to 11. And because of that, the 993 is moving on. There we go. We are in this. We are deep in this right now. We have now moved on to the next round, round 3. Then we move to the semifinals and the finals. So, wow, we've got quite the lineup here so far. All right. We have in our final brackets the 991 GT2 RS going up against the 997 GT3 RS 4.0. it will face off against the 992 ST or the 997 GT3 RS. Scrolling down in the bracket, we have the 993 GT2 going up against the 964 C4 lightweight, and the 911 GT1 going up against the 993 Turbo S. I don't want to make any of these decisions, but I do want to thank everybody who is on here, who is watching. I really do appreciate it. I think this is a fun experience for me, and I think for a lot of other people. So I really do appreciate everybody who is hopping on. It does seem like we are getting a fair amount of people over on X, and for that, I do appreciate it. On Twitter, and make sure to check out my YouTube channel as well, because that is where I spend most of my time. But here we are. So I just pulled up the X stream here. I was on the YouTube stream, but we are getting more viewers over on X at the moment. So welcome, X, Twitter. Shout out to you guys. Going on, we are in round 3. 991 GT2 RS going up against the 997 GT3 RS 4.0. You have a very analog, very naturally aspirated, very raced out version of the GT3 RS going up against a raw, turbocharged, rear-wheel drive 991. Pass? Can I pass on this? This is my own thing, right? I don't know what I would choose on that, honestly. I think... All right, I'm going to ruffle some feathers here. I think I am going to choose the 991 GT2 RS. Locked in. Oh, painful. That 997 GT3 RS 4.0. You just, yeah, it is what it is. Next up, we have the 997 GT3 RS, the regular one, 3.8, or the 992 ST, which is the GT3 RS, kind of the modern version of that. That is, I guess, rather kind of the modern version of the 911R. And for that, it's just honestly all around a better vehicle. Even though it is bigger and heavier, I am going to choose the 992 ST to go up against the 991 GT2 RS. Again, I don't want to make these decisions. They're too difficult. In this bracket, we have the 993 GT2 going up against the 964 C4 lightweight. What do you think? I can't. Oh man, this is a difficult decision. So the 911 or the 993 GT2 raw, visceral, 964 lightweight. Definitely a different driving experience. Definitely not the same amount of horsepower. This one had 300 horsepower, which was a lot for the time, especially being a naturally aspirated motor. But the GT2, that thing just has the look. That thing, like a 964 C4 lightweight, you would not know what it was unless you knew what it was. GT2, anybody walking on the street sees that, they're like, wow, look at that thing. And I think that gives me my answer. 964 lightweight over the GT2. Wow. I did not see that coming. I didn't look at these beforehand. I obviously knew which cars were in there, but I didn't see the seating. It's all randomized. Didn't know how this was going to play out. There it goes. 964 C4 lightweight. It will be facing off against the GT1. Sorry, it's just what it is. 993 Turbo S, super cool vehicle, but it's nothing like the GT1. And that's going to be a hard one to top right there. But we are now down to the semifinals of this bracket challenge of what is the ultimate Porsche 911. We have the 991 GT2 RS going up against the 992 ST model, and the 964 C4 lightweight is going up against the 911 GT1. Whew. Okay, first round. This one's going to be easier than this one. GT2 RS going up against the ST. What would I personally rather have in the garage? And I don't know. You've obviously got a turbocharged PDK, super fast rear-wheel drive, going up against the naturally aspirated, high-strung manual transmission ST, also rear-wheel drive. I think the GT2 RS would be harder to really enjoy on the street. I think for that reason alone, the 992 ST is going to go on. What do you think of that one? Does that pain anybody else that we're now at the finals and the 992 ST is right there going up against either the 964 C4 lightweight or the 911 GT1? Now, the 964 C4 lightweight made it to this round based on the last one. If you're just joining on the live, because it's more understated, you have to know what it is to really know what it is. And for that, it's easier to fly under the radar and have a really cool vehicle without drawing a lot of attention. And the GT1 is the absolute opposite. That is in your face. Everybody sees that and knows it's special in some way. They may not know it's one of 20 or 25 in the world. They won't know that, but they'll see it and say, that is something special. That is a race car. But what is it doing driving on the road? And if it came down to it, which one would I rather have parked in my own garage? Even though I'd be terrified of people breathing on it wrong, I gotta go with the GT1. And again, I did not think the ST would have made it this far. But given how the lineups shook out, that's what it was. That's where we're at. The 992 ST in the finals. What's going to take home the championship? That or the 911 GT1? And honestly, I wish it was a harder decision. But when you put these two up against each other, to me, it's a no-brainer. The winner is the 911 GT1. Submit those scores. There we go. And the winner of the Porsche 911 bracket. There we go. Got to zoom out. Doesn't want to do with that. So we started out with all these vehicles here. All the different versions of special versions of the Porsche 911. Moving on to round two. We had some, again, great choices, great vehicles, and some tough options to go between. And eventually it came down to our final round of the 992 ST versus the 911 GT1. What do you think of that option? What do you think? Is the 911 GT1 the ultimate version of the 911? And arguably, yes, it is, because it is the 911 GT1. It's a homologated special that they didn't make that many of. And it is the ultimate version, in my opinion. Obviously, would love to hear your opinion. What did I mess up on this? What did I screw up on this? Somebody's going to tell me that I did this all wrong. And fortunately, my skin is pretty thick. You can tell me I'm wrong and I'll be okay. But there it is. 911 GT1 is the ultimate version of the 911. And I don't think a whole lot of people are going to argue with me on that. But like I said, there's going to be a few. So thank you for joining me here on the live stream, whether you were on YouTube or on Twitter. Thank you. I really do appreciate anybody who took time out of their day to listen to me rambling about Porsche 911s. Really is a dream come true. So thank you. If you are new to either one of these platforms, make sure to check out the other platform, YouTube or Twitter. I'm active on both, and I do appreciate it. And I will catch you on the next video. We are going live every Wednesday at approximately 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time or 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Today was the exception because all the technology failed. All of it. It did. took about an hour to get it figured out, and that's where we went live here. So thank you again. I will see you on the next video.